Hey guys, so in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how you can make this super professional looking knife really easily at very little cost. So one of the hardest parts of knife making is finding a good steel to use. Now, in this tutorial, we're just going to be using a file. Number one, because I have a bunch of files, and number two, because it's a very hard metal that we don't have to temper or use a forge or anything. Now you can pick up files at pretty much any yard sale where they have tools, or you can just buy a file from the hardware store very inexpensively. Now, as far as the tools you're going to need, there's a little variation. So you could do this all with an angle grinder, and that's something you could do, but I have a belt sander, so I'm going to be using it. And it's just a cheap belt sander I picked up for $50 at Harbor Freight. And the only other tools you're going to need is like a drill, a wood rasp, some sandpaper, and maybe a saw. And before we begin cutting or anything, you're going to want to draw out a design or print one off the internet that you like. And this is very important because you want to have something to kind of shoot for when you're making the knife. And you're going to want to know what you want the knife to look like before you begin anything. Alright, so I finished grinding in the grind, and I tried to file the choil, which is a little divot right here. But you can see, because this is a file, the file wasn't even able to make a dent. You can hear it just skating across. So what that means is that I successfully didn't heat up the knife enough to ruin the temper. But what it also means is that this is really brittle. So guys, now that we're done heat treating the knife, we're going to shine the blade up and sharpen it. So we're going to go back to my jig and just work our way up the grits until it's nice and shiny. Alright guys, so this is what the knife looked like before, and this is what it looks like now after going to 1000 grit on the belt sander and polishing it off on the buffing wheel. So guys, now that I've finished shining up the blade, it's time to make the handle. Now, for a first project, I would just use an oak or any board, any hardwood that you have around, but I'm going to be using this piece of mahogany here and a piece of brass, but to keep it in its most simple form, I wouldn't go for the brass because it's a little difficult to get right. Alright guys, so now it's time for the final glue up. And to glue everything together, I'm just going to be using this JB Weld. It's the 2-part epoxy. And this stuff works phenomenal. I've used it so many times. and it's super strong and long lasting. Now it's time to start shaping the handle, and this is probably the most enjoyable part of the whole build, and the part where you can have the most creativity.